What was that? Counted two? Okay. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are commencing with the Policy Committee of the Whole meeting tonight. We have quite a long agenda. We accomplished quite a bit in the weeks since our last Policy Committee meeting, and we do have a special meeting after, so I want to get right down to business. The first order of business is a motion. I would like to receive a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Adams, second from Vice President LeBron. All in favor?
Aye.
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 I see, for those who are watching, we have Camille Simmons has logged on via Zoom. We may have another board member Zoom in who is taking training in Harvard. If that happens, we will have to waive our video conferencing policy, so let's stand by. If we hear that we have a second board member logged in, we can double back on the agenda if that's all right with all. So the motion, the motion carries. Electronic voting is up and running, so let's make sure that that gets recorded. And Ms. Travis will let us know when all the votes are in.
Motion passes 4-0. I didn't mark Commissioner Simmons in yet because the camera's off.
I'm sorry, I'm getting echo. What was that?
I'm not sure if Commissioner Simmons, can you hear us?
Oh, that's right. We didn't see her visual for the vote.
You can
There we are.
avoid me for this particular vote because I came in the middle of the vote. I don't even know what you're voting on, so.
Okay, just so that you know, Commissioner Simmons, it was just to approve the agenda.
Okay.
And we did
All
not
right.
get any request to modify the agenda, so we're good to go there. Okay? I don't have, the headphones aren't working for me, so. The next item on the agenda is to approve the minutes from June 7th. Do I have a motion? Again, moved by Commissioner Adams. Second by Vice President LeBron. All in favor? Aye. And we will have an electronic vote momentarily.
Yep. Voting should now be open online.
I can't get logged in yet.
I see the Commissioner Simmons is on visual. Are you casting your aye vote, Commissioner Simmons?
I said aye while I was on camera, so you're all set. If you didn't hear me, I hope you guys have that documented.
Thank you. All right.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, very good, thank you. I did skip by speakers, but that's because we have no speakers signed up on the Policy Committee agenda. We're now at item 3B, review of NYSBA policy recommendations. There are no updates from NYSBA. And we're up to 6 board members present. Commissioner Malloy has just arrived. Thank you for joining us, Commissioner Malloy. I know that you're going to need a little bit of time to log in because all of the computers are force updating. So you may have to give your, ask Ms. Travis to enter your vote manually, okay? Okay, so under new business, Ms. Travis is going to walk us through a presentation on the District Part 1 policies that moved through the subcommittee. I almost promoted you there.
So good evening, everyone. So the policy subcommittee reviewed District Part 1 policies, which include 1,000 to 1,200. This is a reminder of the policy roadmap it goes through subcommittee, and then policies go to the admin, community input, depending on what policies are being reviewed. They may come back to the subcommittee if there's more work that needs to be done, and then it comes to policy. These are the contributors who work with the policy during subcommittee. And so basically, the policy subcommittee, we meet biweekly, and all documents as they are being updated are put into track changes. And again, they're forwarded to executive cabinet and relevant advisory committees depending on the policy. Recommendations are then reviewed by the subcommittee, and then they are brought to the board as you see right now. So with this set of policies, community relations goals policy 1000, there were no significant there were bullets rearranged and added in order to meet the goals for building a strong community. So the biggest change was just making the policy flow better. But there were no recommendations from NESBA. For public information policy 1100, no significant changes on the subcommittee side of it. The NESBA said that this policy is fine, but no longer maintained by them and is not required or deemed essential. School district records policy 1120, there were no significant changes by the subcommittee. NESBA has recommended that this policy should be expanded to include information on litigation, hold, invasion of unwarranted invasion of privacy, etc. Media relations policy 1130, for both the policy and NESBA side, there's no changes. And then constitutionally protected prayer in schools, 1150, no significant changes on the subcommittee side, and then NESBA recommended that this policy can be removed as it offers little meaningful policy guidance. So at this point, the policies that are still under review in this batch are public engagement, 1140, and community involvement, 1200. Next steps is once policies are forwarded out of this policy committee, they will be forwarded to the business meeting, and following policy 2410, which is the policy management, and the goal would be the board to be able to vote on these policies in September.
Thank you, Charisma. Now, Charisma, if you can go back to the third to last slide that listed the summary, I just want to speak to the NISBA recommendations. Although they occasionally make suggestions for changes, in this packet, none of their suggestions has been adopted. We, in the conversation about litigation impacts, we might consider another policy, a different policy, if the board were so inclined. Our legal counsel had discussions with us in subcommittee, and I don't recall what you said specifically about it, Adrian, whether it was that the footnotes were and references were adequate to that suggestion, or the 1120, I can't read it from here. The 1120 school records policy, NISBA suggested expansion to include information on litigation hold, invasion of privacy information, and we did have that conversation in subcommittee. My recollection is that we thought that the policy was pretty substantial as written. And I share that with you only because, I don't want you to think we didn't debate whether it was useful to take NISBA's suggestions. As for the final one, the protected prayer, our legal counsel indicated that he often uses that policy to have discussions with staff and the public who have questions. And so being able to refer to a policy, even though it doesn't change anything, in terms of what's allowed by law, it is a useful reference point from which he can launch his conversations with staff or the public. So that's why we're recommending keeping it in the manual. That's why the subcommittee's recommendation is to keep it. So what we can do is walk through each of these 5 policies, excuse me, and if you have questions or want to take a pause and talk about them, we can do that at the individual level, okay? So, because that's the way the agenda was set up, so we can vote on each one individually. I would like to entertain a motion to advance Policy 1000, Community Relations Goals, to the full board.
So moved.
A motion from Commissioner Malloy.
Second.
A second from Commissioner Adams. Thank you. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor of advancing this policy as written, or as amended? There is a rearrangement of bullets. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. And we'll,
Online voting is now open. Commissioner Simmons, I will vote for you.
again, for a viewing audience, the online voting pops up at slightly different times for different board members. It doesn't automatically appear before all of us at the same time. And there we go.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. At this time, I would entertain a motion to advance the Public Information Program Policy, number 1100.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Discussion.
I second.
I got you. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of advancing it to full board?
Aye.
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 Online voting is now open. Right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would entertain a motion to advance school district records policy, number 1120.
So moved.
Second.
We have our usual lineup here. We have a motion and a second. Discussion. Hearing no discussion, all in favor of advancing to the full board?
Aye.
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 Right, online voting is now open. All right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you very much. The next policy up for discussion is the media relations policy. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Making it easy for the clerk. Okay. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on media relations policy. Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Online voting is now open. Commissioner Simmons, if it's okay with you, I'll take your vote because I know you just walked in.
Oh, I said aye.
All right, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, thank you.
I didn't hear what she said.
We'll wait, that's all right. Okay, the last in this batch, and I emphasize only in this batch, is the constitutionally protected prayer in schools, policy 1150. Could I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second, Commissioner Malloy and Commissioner Adams, as has been the pattern tonight. Discussion. No discussion? In that case, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Very good, thank you. Okay, and that takes us to Part 2, District Part 2 in particular. We went through the same process. We have a presentation, just like the first. It might be okay to bypass the introductory slides and just go to the table.
No problem. So for District Part 2, Policy 1205, Recognition for Accomplishment, there were no significant changes in the policy subcommittee. NESBA recommended this policy be removed as it offers little meaningful policy guidance. Recruiters in Schools, Policy 1240.1, no significant changes in subcommittee. NESBA recommended that this policy is highly procedural in nature and should be carefully reviewed for current process that it does not conflict with any current privacy policies. Public use of school facilities, policy 1500, no significant change in subcommittee, and NESBA has no recommendations. Public conduct on school property, policy 1520, no significant change in subcommittee, and NESBA also had no changes. The policies that are still under review from this batch are booster organizations, 1222, visitors to schools policy, 1240, and security breach and notification, 1300. Similar to the District Part 1, if all goes to plan, these policies will be forwarded out to go to business meeting for a board vote in September.
Okay. I actually can't give you an update as to why these are not ready. General Counsel, if you have any recollection, particularly of the security breach notification, that you can fill us in what we're waiting on, that would be useful. But you don't have to do it right this second if you don't.
I was going to say, do you want me to comment as to where that one is at?
If you know, sure.
So 1222 and 1300 actually they were sent to Executive Cabinet this week to be reviewed. So hopefully, if all goes to plan, the board should be seeing it in the August policy Cal meeting. But 1240 is going to be taking a little more time for that one to be reviewed because of this, the significance of that policy.
And it does need to go to our partners, our PLAC and bilingual council and so on as well, right? Because it has a direct impact on our public.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So, starting at the top, I would entertain a motion to advance policy 1205, recognition for accomplishment, to the full board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Although NISBA thought this could be removed, we're bringing it forward for one simple reason, that that the board, I am confident that this board, as in past boards, supports public recognitions and would not be interested in projecting the image that we are backing away from it by eliminating a policy. Even if our practices stayed the same, having a policy on the books communicates something about what we consider important. And so continuing to have a policy supporting public recognitions is as important as doing the recognitions. At least that's my take on this. And we'll find out when the votes are cast, if you all agree with me. Any other discussion on that? Yeah. Yes, please.
The only thing I would add to that, I mean, I reviewed it too, and I actually do agree that it doesn't offer any meaningful policy guidance. We have enough policies on our books that we don't follow, so if we can minimize as many that don't make sense, and that doesn't equate to the board and this district not saying that recognizing individuals who go above and beyond shouldn't be recognized. They should. All of our staff that work hard should be recognized, but it doesn't even offer how we're going to recognize folks. So again, if we're thinking about a policy, this is what we're going to do, this is how we're going to do it. That how isn't answered in this draft right now.
Other comments? Okay, well, the votes will decide. All in favor of advancing this for vote to the full board?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Aye.
Online voting is now open.
Oh, I didn't.
Still waiting on 2 more commissioners.
So, it didn't pop up.
I don't have.
Wait.
Yep.
Waiting on 1 more. We are all set. Motion passes 5-1.
Okay, thank you. The next policy is recruiters in schools, policy 1240.1. To begin discussion, can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
We have our usual lineup for putting it on the table. Thank you. Okay, discussion. Where would you all like to begin?
Yeah, I think for what I read in here, in terms of the military being able to recruit, that they can recruit unless the parents notify them in advance, notify the school in advance that they, or any other organization that that they can't be recruited. Somehow I think that it should be in reverse, that we should be, and I don't know how you really do that, but particularly some of these somewhat controversial organizations like the military, that whatever school that they may be in should be contacting our families to say in advance that the military is going to be on campus, and they may be interested in speaking with your child, something to that effect. I don't like it in the reverse, to tell you the truth, because the parents may not know when these organizations may be on campus, and so I think we should do it in the opposite way, to contact them in advance, to inform parents so that parents have the information.
Legal counsel, would you like to speak to the timeline? I think it has a lot to do with just the way that outreach is done. The recruiters call the school to schedule a date, and then that's when a decision is made to approve or disapprove. So then the question is, what happens after that commitment has already been made to the recruiter?
Right, so the federal law requires that certain access be given to military recruiters, I think. So the district sends out yearly a notice and opt-out to families. Families get the opportunity to opt in or out of certain information being provided, directory information to certain elements, including the military. So I think, I don't know how you address that. So the notice does go out to families pretty early, and I think that it happens during the summer historically. So folks in accountability may be able to confirm that, but typically it kind of goes out with the calendar. So the notice of rights, information about FERPA, and including the military. So I think there is plenty of opportunity for notice of families and opt-out early.
So can I get a copy of that form? Charisma, could you make sure that I get a copy of that form? All right, thank you.
No problem.
If I could ask a follow-up question. We do offer an opportunity for families to opt out, particularly within a certain time window of their graduation. I think a year and a half before they graduate is when recruitment information starts going out. From
11th and 12th grade, yeah.
Say that again?
11th and 12th grade, they typically are entitled to get certain information.
Right. So so my follow-up question is this: if a family opts out of getting recruitment materials mailed to their home, is that same opt-out honored at the school, or if a recruiter sets up a table, it's whoever walks up to the table, regardless of what the parent might have said on the form?
So I'm trying to be careful not to make sure the microphone's on.
I don't want to necessarily speak for the responsible department, but the district is kind of really set up for information to be released and authorized centrally. We do have an accountability department that's supposed to vet requests, and as part of our kind of common practice, we kind of tell schools outside of certain designated requesters, you're really not supposed to be releasing information. So, if kind of proper practices are followed, the request should be being vetted centrally before, the information is authorized for release through our accountability department.
And
Yeah, I just want to,
I'm sorry, I was going to say that, and that references our student records policy, which is, clearly tangential to the recruitment, because it's through the release of vital records that companies, the military, colleges get information about who to mail to. But that is governed by a different policy. So your follow-up question, President Elliott?
I'll wait for the form, to receive the form in terms of how the opt-out process works. But, unfortunately, just because we have it written in policy doesn't mean that it's being practiced, So that's my concern. But I'll take a look at the form, and if I have any questions, I'll follow up with the superintendent.
Commissioner Adams?
So, I definitely would like the responsibility of sending out a notice to remain with the district, as opposed to having the military, depending on the military, to inform me that they've sent this out. And I kind of believe that in order for them to do that, we would have to give them some data that they probably should not have access to. So I just support us holding down that responsibility of contacting the families.
Again, that's, it references a different policy, the student records policy, and that the whole opt-out process was very controversial when it was brought up, in part because we had recruiters literally lobbying us in the public speaking portion and the comments portion, asking us for free rein to those mailing lists, and we were pretty much bucking the system on that. So, Charisma, can you note, did we already pass the student records policy, or is that coming up?
I believe that was in District Part 1. The school district records policy, 1120. It was, the motion passed, so this is part of today's
Right,
meeting.
That's what we already did, and it didn't get any attention then. Sorry about that.
No, you're fine. And that's actually the policy that, if you recall, our parent rep really supported because of it being, just based on the significance of that policy, even though NESBA had a different recommendation.
So, because she liked the opt-out process?
In terms of the student records policy itself, keeping it because of the importance of it.
Right. Any other questions, comments on the recruiters in schools policy? One thing I would note is that there was a time when the Board of Education really did not want military recruiters in schools, but the government made it perfectly clear that we could not forbid them from entering our schools. The best we could do is to allow other groups sort of equal access to our students to essentially rebut arguments, and this was particularly important when the military was a discriminating employer. So.
Yeah, I didn't have an issue with the military being on site because I think that it gives an opportunity for our students to have a diversity of career paths. So I wasn't, I never objected to that per se, although I don't want our students to go, but I never objected to that. What I am objecting to now is parents being informed first. So that's my concern at this point.
Any other input? Are we ready for a vote? Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Online voting is now open. It's waiting on 2 more commissioners.
It hasn't appeared on my screen.
Do you want me to take your vote?
Yeah, it's no.
Motion passes 6-0.
No.
No, she said
Said no.
Right.
I'm sorry, motion passes 5-1.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Next policy is, I would entertain a motion for public use of school facilities, policy 1500. Can we put down the usual suspects?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you so much, both of you. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Online voting is now open. Just waiting on 2 more commissioners.
You'll have to take my vote. Yes.
Okay. No problem. All right, motion passes this time, 6-0.
The next policy is public conduct on school property. This is policy 1520. Do I have a motion to advance? You go first.
Motion.
Seconded.
Just to keep charisma on her toes, right?
We thought we'd switch things up.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Obviously, this ties back to our code of conduct to some extent. If there's no other comments, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Online voting is now open. Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. And that concludes that entire batch of the second batch of policies, right? Oh, yeah, well, okay. On my agenda, I have policy 0310.
You have, right before that, you have the homeschool one, 1741.
Homeschool. Let's see. Have I lost my place? Yes. Now, remind me why we are discussing this now. This is a brand-new one, right?
Yes,
Yes.
this is the gray area notes was why was brought to the table. It's
Thank
not
you.
supposed to be forwarded necessarily out of this meeting, just
Right,
for
right.
discussion.
Thank you so much for refreshing my memory. So if my colleagues would click on the attached document, this particular policy is recommended by the NISBA. It's not mandatory, but it is have I said that right, Adrian?
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
Okay. It was suggested by NISBA that we take this one up. And there's some language in there. I might ask you to shepherd this one through, Adrian. There's some language that NISBA is offering us a choice of how we handle homeschool instructed students, in particular how we oversee it and how actively we oversee it.
Commissioner, this specifically has to do with immunizations, is what I believe.
Participation in
Yeah, whether or
sports
not,
activities.
yeah, we want to approve a policy with regard to requiring immunization of homeschool students.
Specifically, if they are participating in some of our interscholastic activities, intramural sports, and I'm sorry, specifically, there's a commissioner's regulation that specifically says in New York State that homeschool students cannot participate in our sports teams. However, there are other activities that a homeschooled student might, under the law, be able to participate with. And so the question is, what language do we, within the noted language, how much of this do we want to include in a potential new policy?
I guess I have a quick question. So where we see note, that is the recommended language by NISBA?
Well, they're potentially competing notes. The note at the bottom of the page isn't necessarily congruent with the notes at the top of the page.
So typically where you see notes, It's like a discussion from NISBA, they're explaining certain things, right? So the notes are typically, NISBA's notes about either why they're recommending the policy, why they're recommending the language. So the notes wouldn't really necessarily end up in the policy, a lot of times. Sometimes as maybe an introduction or a preface to certain sections it might, but really, you'll see these notes whenever they're gonna make, like a recommendation for a change to an existing policy or, explanation of certain sections for, new policies as are here. So those blue blocks with notes are typically from this one.
I guess more specifically, Commissioner Powell, then I'm asking is our policy consistent with what NISBA is recommending?
Well,
Or the notes, at least?
So this policy does not exist in our book today, all right? So I think the discussion point is really, okay, so for the audience who's watching, the notes, and that's awfully fine print, state law does not permit parents to receive a religious exemption from immunizations in the same way that our students who attend school in person no longer are allowed a religious exemption. But if they have a medical exemption, then the question before us is, would we allow such a student to participate in activities that the law does permit a student to join our students in, and I'm trying to think of a legitimate example, Adrian, given that we don't do, when sports is off the table, would something like math league or something like that be an option?
Chess club, maybe?
I'm not sure, honestly.
So what are we being asked to do tonight,
So
Commissioner Powell?
specifically, the question is, to the extent to which school districts previously could permit unvaccinated homeschooled students to participate in certain school activities, recent changes to the law now prohibit districts from offering such opportunities. Look, I think the real question is, would we permit homeschooled students to participate to any extent? And that's really what I kind of want to see a thumbs up, thumbs down from my colleagues, irrespective of immunizations. If a family is choosing homeschooled, what do we want, what is our position in terms of supporting that child? Because like non-public schools, we still have direct oversight, you know? In theory, our superintendent has the authority to report to the state any non-public school that she believes is not adequately educating children that belong to us, that live within our district. So to what extent do we want to open the door to homeschooled students for non-educational, non-sports activities?
Commissioner Powell, I know it says up in the notes at the top and around the middle of the paragraph, recent changes in law now prohibit districts from offering such opportunities to those who do not qualify. So legally, if we allowed students to participate in those activities, what I want to know is, are we breaking the law then by allowing that exemption?
Are you reading but the back part of that, Commissioner Molloy, who don't qualify for medical-based exemptions? Or am I looking at something different?
Yeah, it's like the sentence that says, to the extent to which school districts previously could permit unvaccinated homeschooled children to participate in certain school activities, recent changes in law now prohibit districts from offering such opportunities. So if we were, I guess what I thought Commissioner Powell was asking us was whether or not we wanted to go ahead and permit, maybe I'm mistaken here, if we wanted to go ahead and permit students to participate in non-athletic extracurricular activities.
That
So
is
I
the-
was thinking that there was a,
Right, I
a
understand,
conflict there.
I understand your question. Okay, the portion of the notes that you just read pertains to vaccinations specifically. It doesn't say that we can't offer anything, okay? It just says, to the same degree that our own children that come here to our buildings no longer are allowed a religious exemption from vaccines, they would have to, if we held the door open for other activities, that they would have to follow the same rules as the children that show up in person. That they would have, if they weren't vaccinated, they had to have a medical reason, that the religious reason would not be sufficient. That's what it's saying.
Well,
So-
we're, go
sorry,
ahead.
well, what changes then do we need to institute, if any?
Really, we're pointing to page 2, second half, participation in extracurricular activities. The options are here at the bottom, including such things as use of our libraries, school district gymnasiums, band and music. Are we prepared to open the door for those items? And in this draft, the answer is yes. So I really just want, because the authority lies with us, I wanted to hear from you, the board, before committing to this language.
But we have certain policies around immunization, and so do we want to disregard our own policies around immunization and make exceptions here? So I think that's the,
Well, that's not really what's on the table, and it's peculiar that so much attention is put on the immunizations part. The real question is, how much would we have, because that's really settled. The immunization question has been settled by the state, and we don't have a whole lot of say in that matter. The question is, how wide open is the door to homeschooled students, to our gyms, to our clubs, to band and music? I mean, can you imagine having a homeschooled child show up for band instruction in the middle of the school day and have to be escorted to a band room? Is that something that, however frequent or rare that might be, is that something that we want to support? Vice President LeBron.
Yeah, I think it's a dangerous door to open, especially since we don't control immunizations. It's not our policy, it's the state law. And there's a reason why there's a state law around immunizations and that religious exemptions happened, even though people don't agree with it. There is a actual medical reason to further minimize harm reduction for other kids, especially who are autoimmune compromised to potentially get sick. So I'm just thinking a kid who's not vaccinated, especially with monkeypox, which is now in Monroe County. I just want to note that monkeypox is here. But in any event, even chickenpox, for example, if they're not vaccinated around MRSA or chickenpox or whatever the case may be, and we don't allow them to receive an education here because they're not vaccinated, but we would be saying, yeah, come with other kids to band and gym, even though you're not they would not even be legally allowed to stay in the district. We have this issue every year with kids not producing vaccination up to date, and New York state law requires us to get that documentation. Otherwise, they have to be dropped, excluded from the education. So I think it opens up a door potentially for other liabilities from the other side of that. As a parent who may say, wait a minute, you almost kicked my kid out of school because I was late with vaccinations because I had other things going on. But now this kid, even though they're not here 6 hours, they get to be here for 3 hours because of band, gym, and whatever else, music. I think that in itself will create an inequity to a law that we don't control or create. Like, we didn't create, and we can't control the immunization laws. We have to follow those rules. So for me, I would not support opening that door this wide.
Again, the question isn't whether we allow those who are unimmunized in, it's whether we allow a homeschool child in the door at all. If you look at the note at the top of page 3, the alternative to the language at the bottom of page 2, the alternative language is, quote, "Students instructed at home by their parents are not permitted to participate in district activities or use district facilities other than as permitted by policy 1500 public use of schools." That's the alternative language to what is at the bottom of page 2. So that's really where our choices lie.
So I have a quick question. Do we currently allow homeschooled students, immunized students, obviously, to participate in any type of activity? Do we have students who take band classes or PE courses currently? And if we were to go ahead and allow that or open that door, would we be required to provide transportation for those students from their homes to school? What would the ripple effect of that be on our district?
Right. The superintendent may not even know off the top of her head if that's such a thing that's happening now, but you raise a very interesting point about, we have to deliver transportation to non-public students, religious schools. Home instruction, homeschooling is still quite a rare thing, but nationwide it is on the rise, which I think is part of the reason that NISBA is recommending that we have a policy.
Our numbers did double from last year because of COVID, so we were around 300, 350. We now sit around 700. So that number is higher for our district, a district of our size, it's higher. The other piece, going along with what Commissioner Malloy said, you do get into transportation issues, supervision issues, if there are interactions, right, between homeschool students and scholars attending districts, you have to sort that out. But the two biggest are the supervision and also trying to get in contact with the parent. We wouldn't necessarily, they would have to go centrally to get that information. It's not at the school.
And do we have homeschooled students who participate in any of our athletic programs? I thought that specifically there were some students who participated.
Who are homeschooled? We're, not that I know of,
Okay.
not that I'm aware
So
of.
that not current practice within the district?
Not to my knowledge,
Okay.
no.
I just think, although I do respect families' choices and the ability to homeschool their children, that is a choice that one is making, and often that's the right choice for those families. But I think that picking and choosing, being able to, if you make that choice, I think that should be the choice and stick with that choice. But I don't think the district should allow students who are homeschooled to participate in those other activities necessarily.
It certainly complicates our lives and the lives of our school principals and administrators. Could I hear some input from others?
I was wondering, it may be that we have the votes for this, but I was wondering if we can keep it in committee and discuss it further. But if they're the votes, then, I don't have a problem with that. You want to keep it in committee? Yeah, to discuss it further, because I don't think that we've done our due diligence about this, because I'm thinking it's around immunizations. You're taking it from another perspective. And so, yeah, I think we need to be clear about what it is that we are asking to move to the board. So I think we should just keep it in committee.
I like that idea, President.
Yeah,
Because I
talk
do need
about
more
it
clarity on that.
So if folks need time to mull this over, my one suggestion, because this was only on tonight's agenda, for me to try to get a feel for where you all stood before I even proposed language, is we can put it on the subcommittee agenda, the next subcommittee that's coming up, And board members that have, having mulled it over, come to a position in their hearts, want to express that either by email or in person by coming to a subcommittee meeting, the door would be wide open for that, and then we can bring it back at the August Policy Committee meeting. Yes.
As a reminder, you can't have more than 4 board members, even at a subcommittee, having a conversation about a potential policy. So I just want to put that out there in case you want to kind of rotate it, in case people do want to show up, maybe rotate them in and out.
Keep in mind that this is not, the subcommittee is not a place where we are making decisions. It's just a place where language is hammered out. We do not make decisions at subcommittee. Everything that happens in subcommittee comes right here. But it has had an opportunity for dialogue with the administration, sort of a first-line vetting with the parents. So anything that is discussed at the subcommittee is discussed again right here.
Yeah, but that's not how the law works. I just want to point out that if you have 4 or more board members, whether they're having a discussion and it could potentially lead that it should be a public conversation, that's all. So I have a subcommittee too. I only have 1 board member that shows up. That's me, because I have other folks from the administration and my parent rep that come every month. But if I said to all the board members, come to the finance preview, and we're going to have some conversations there, that could potentially turn into a conversation that should be had in the public over public officers law. That's all.
That would be a problem I would love to have. Honestly, I would love to have that much input from my colleagues prior to bringing something to the board that I have to say, somebody has to leave this meeting. I don't see it happening. So,
Excuse me.
we'll work on it. So far, I only have a strong feeling from one other board member that
To be explicitly clear, I do not support it at this time. I kind of align with what Commissioner Malloy expressed, so not to be redundant, but I would like to mull that over, as you stated, and make sure that I'm doing my due diligence and looking at all aspects concerning this decision. Thank you.
Good. Well, please do let me know when your heart is settled on the matter, okay? All right, so that discussion, we can consider that discussion closed at this point. We have policy 0310, evaluation of school board operational procedures. This is a very brief policy. It is something that we do annually, usually in summer retreats, which is to set goals. However, I do only have it before us as an FYI to ask if folks are comfortable with this.
The changes that I'm seeing are just like capitalization, is that?
Well, when I say are folks comfortable with it, I mean that, we've had some discussions about whether the board, about board evaluations, and
Excuse me.
there's one sentence: the board shall set forth the standards by which it will evaluate itself. And I felt, given some of the previous conversations, that was like a flare sitting in the middle of our policy, and wanted to make sure that as we advance this policy, we understand that self-evaluation is embedded in that policy and has been. So wanted to give us all an opportunity to have that discussion. And if no one wants to speak to it, then it will stay
I'd like to
as
say,
is. Yes, Dr. Jallow.
yeah, I'd like to say that, I'd like the board to give consideration that this might be an opportunity to embed those characteristics of a highly effective school board from NISBA. That somehow gets into this policy as a way or as a standard for evaluation.
That would be the 8 points that you handed out in our retreat?
Yes.
How do folks feel about that?
I want to get this real quick.
On Dr. Jallo's point, first
Yeah.
and foremost, yes?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yes.
To Dr. Jallo's point, I did ask for evidence of where those ideologies are being used and are successful, and I would ask that from anybody. So I would still like to see that before I embed it in a policy. And then in regards to the self-evaluation in the policy, this is the first time I've heard about self-evaluation being embedded in a policy in 5 years. So I'm not sure if that's your recommendation to embed it now, or if it was already embedded in this policy.
This is, the language you see here is in black font. It's always been there. It's been there since 1998.
So again, it's 2022, I've been on the board since 2018, and this is the first I've ever heard of that being in a policy format for the board. Just want to throw that on record. Thank you.
So I do think that some of the language that was presented in terms of a highly effective board can in some way be included, like in the first statement. I'll have to look at those 8 elements again, but I'd like there to be some language in there with regard to what does a high-functioning board look like, something that we can work at. And for me, I think is, having that language somewhere in the narrative may work.
So Dr. Jallo suggested that, and tell me if I'm restating this correctly, Dr. Jallo, you asked that it be included as the metric by which the board evaluates itself. So you wouldn't want it just to be attached to.
No. Let me infuse. If I expressed it that way, I was wrong. I wanted to somehow be part of this policy. It could be used as a metric. It could be used as an introduction, but I think it's from NISBA, and we're trying to follow good advice from NISBA. And so I think that a policy that talks to the operation and the behavior of the board, this might be a good place for you to consider possibly infusing it into this policy.
Okay, and I may not have summarized it right. My question to you is, there are a number of ways that we can, as you said, embed it. One is
Yes.
we could simply attach it as you presented it to us as an exhibit and make no direct reference to it. We could change the statement about our self-evaluation to specifically reference it, or as you just said, we could embed it in the policy proper.
Yes.
Do you have a preference of the, am I hearing you say your preference would be that we embed it in the policy?
That would be my preference, but that is definitely up to the board.
Can I get some feedback from my colleagues so that I know what direction to take this?
I support that, that we in some way embed it within the policy. And I think that our community needs to know what a high-functioning board, looks like, and I think being in the policy, that would give them some information.
I do believe that we need to be very concise about the criteria in which we are looking at when considering that, but I do support having some standard of us considering ourselves as a board. I mean, that's unquestionable to me. That's something we must do.
I would support it as well.
Commissioner Adams? Okay. All right, well, I'll take that feedback and see how I can incorporate the language and bring back another iteration. Okay? I've often thought that when we make that presentation that has a roadmap, that it really should look more like a traffic circle, because sometimes policy language development is iterative, and sometimes you have to go around the wheel a couple of times, and this is an example of just that. So thank you for your input on that. The next item on the agenda, we have a couple of unfinished business items. The facilities development goals, policy 7,000. So this one, Charisma and I went back and forth with Mike Schmidt and then with Chief. I'm trying to blank. Over operations.
Mike Schmidt?
No,
Chief
no,
Schmidt?
no.
Dr. Morris.
Thank you, Dr.
Oh,
Morris.
okay.
I couldn't think of any name, Dr. Morris, about because each of these segments starts with goals. Their 1,000 level is goals. We went around a little bit about what we wanted to express in the goals. And so in the end, it looks like, can we put it in like the non-track changes, the clean version? In the end, the policy is very simple. And the opening, if you can read the opening line for us, Charisma, 'cause I'm not sure our viewing audience can see it.
A quality educational program can best function in an environment that is conducive to learning, supports, and encourages excellence in teaching, and provides a safe and comfortable place for students and staff. And then accordingly, the Board of Education establishes the following goals for facilities development.
And in particular, we wanted to create a space for all of those criteria that need to go into the decision-making in facilities. So there's a long list of considerations that in FMP, the most recent version, it was called core model. And it was a term of art that doesn't translate well into common everyday language. So our first bullet is to maintain a long-range plan and evaluation program, full stop. The exhibit is everything that's in core model without calling it core model, because we don't want people to get hung up on the terms of art and in the language that the State Department of Education uses when we submit our forms. So in the end, this very simple, this policy ended up really quite elegant by reducing the words put on the page, and yet, when you look at the attachment, contains lots and lots of detail. So, my hope is that we actually pass this tonight. Could I get a motion to further discuss?
So moved.
Second.
Oh, this time Commissioner Simmons seconded. Excellent. Mixed it up a little bit. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on policy 7,000? Hearing none?
Actually, I have a question.
Yes, Dr. Jello.
So I attended a meeting this morning where we talked about KPIs. And there are many KPIs in a document from the Council of Great City Schools in this area. And I wonder if this is an opportunity to incorporate some of that work into this policy as well.
Can you?
I mean, maybe, one of the administration could speak to it. I might be off, but it just seems like a natural fit.
Dr. Jallo, this is Leslie. I agree that it should have more of a prominent position, but I would respectfully suggest that we put it as regulation to the policy. We can mention something about KPIs and then put it in regulation.
No, I'm just, I'm just asking, I'm
Sure.
not suggesting in any way. I'm
Yep.
just
We
trying to
can
connect
mention
the dots.
KPIs and then put it in regulation.
Madam Superintendent, can you tell our listening audience what KPI stands for?
Sure, key performance indicators. So they allow, in this case, a school district to look at targets that we have set at smaller intervals so we can track our progress along the way.
And that's probably a tool that any of our goals from our strategic plan would incorporate, correct?
It's a subset of the strategic plan. So we would look at KPIs that lead to increasing our graduation rate, improving attendance, decreasing suspensions. But we also have suggestions for one on the operational side as well.
And keep in mind that literally every section that is in our policy manual starts with the word, or that includes the word goals and is at a 1,000 level, 1,000, 2,000, 7,000. Almost always are subsets of our strategic plan. That's part of the common characteristic among those goals policies. Okay. So are you volunteering to write, or to have a regulation
You didn't see me
crafted?
put my finger on my nose? Yes, I will.
Thank you. And
Charisma, if you just send the Word document so I can go in and track changes are already, I know, on. Thank you.
No problem.
for our viewing audience, the superintendent's regulation does not need to be board approved, nor does the board have to, by any rules that we've established for ourselves, hold a policy up to wait for superintendent's regs. Sometimes we do that, but it's not required.
Time frame?
Your discretion.
Okay.
Okay? Any other discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of advancing policy 7,000 changes and 7,000 E1 to the full board for vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Online voting is now open. Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. We have a survey, and I would ask that folks take 2 minutes to complete the survey before I entertain a motion to adjourn this policy committee meeting. I know that we have a special meeting right after this.
I'm in the wrong one. Policy, go back.
Oh. That's strange. Are you, that's it. Just didn't notice because you weren't a voter. Okay. At this time, I would entertain a motion to adjourn the policy committee and at which point I can turn the table
Motion.
over to board president.
Second.
I'm sorry, who was the second?
Motion, I motioned.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second.
Me.
Oh, okay, thank you. Commissioner Elliott seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you, everyone, for your participation. I appreciate it. And we're significantly further down the line with completing our policy manual review. I appreciate it very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Pell.
Madam President, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good evening. Just give us a minute to get to the agenda for the special meeting. Okay. Do I need to refresh? New business? Thank you. Good evening. We're calling to order the special meeting to convene for consideration of resolutions. And the next item on the agenda is our speakers list. And looks like we have one speaker. Kalia, you want to introduce our speaker? Or is this just speaker comments?
No, just, there was no speakers, just one speaker comment that was
Okay.
submitted to the record.
All right, thank you. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the Bilingual Education Council bylaws. Can I
President
ask?
Elliott?
oh,
Oh,
Am
I'm
I
so
doing something
sorry.
wrong?
Oh, no, I just want to make sure, just to say that Commissioner Patterson will be coming in,
Okay.
but he'll be coming in late.
Okay, so to what Kalia indicated, Commissioner Patterson will be arriving, but he'll be late, and he'll come in via Zoom, so. Okay, so we will ask for, let me just ask for a motion to review and consider the Bilingual
Motion.
Educational Council bylaws.
Second.
Moved by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Adams. Is there any discussion on the bylaws for the Bilingual Education Council?
And I do have members of the Bilingual Education Council in the audience, if they'd like to address the board. And also, I have one member on Zoom as well.
Okay,
Two members on
Two
Zoom, I'm
members on
sorry,
Zoom?
Devet
Okay.
and Nikauri.
All right, it should be pretty straightforward. I know we work with Adrian, our attorney worked with Adrian to work through some of the issues. Just the three highlights of the changes was that we made clear that the parent representatives and other organizations need to comply with the bylaws of the organization to which they belong to. And that was to clarify the role between the other parent groups and what the Bilingual Council role plays in those other parent groups. And then we slightly clarified the BEC's consultation with the superintendent whenever the Department of Bilingual Education of New York State Department, the New York State Department of Bilingual Education visits the district for a monitoring visit. And we made clear that confidentiality must be maintained when we have access to information that is still not part of the public record, or we participate in a process that is not yet public. So other than that, I think, everybody has reviewed them. I know the administration has reviewed them. Dr. Black spent a lot of time updating them. The attorneys spent some time working together. So I think they're good to go.
Before you step down, can you just say your name for the record?
I'm sorry, Angelica Perez Delgado.
Thank you.
Yeah, does anybody else want to speak?
Did you want to say something, Adrian?
No, just to confirm that, I thank the BEC for working cooperatively with the district. They did have an attorney who represented them pro bono, from my understanding. And it was a very collaborative process to get to where we needed to go.
So is there anyone else that wants to speak in consideration for the bylaws? Anybody on Zoom that wants to speak in consideration?
No, they just wanted to be present.
All right, they just want it passed. Yeah, it's been a long time. I would just say, let me just, yeah. Any questions from any of my colleagues here at the dais? Any comments? Yeah, Vice President LeBron?
I do want to thank everybody that put a lot of diligent work into this. I know that, historically, the BEC Council is one of those things that has been in the district for a number of years, like precedes me, and even being a parent myself in this district. But, it can be very frustrating as new leadership comes in and there's just turnover, and then the information gets lost and how it's handled. And so to get back to resetting us right now, I feel very, I just feel very confident that we're on the right track to where we need to go. I don't want to over-exasperate, like this is going to fix everything, but I think it puts us on a good trajectory for all Latino families in the city of Rochester who especially interact and attend the Rochester City School District, because it is important to have representation. And it's often very frustrating to be bilingual and have to fight to have the right to be heard and understood and have a voice when it comes to our children in this district. So kudos to the Bilingual Education Council, the parents and Ibero and the organizations as well who support them, and our internal staff like Analai and everybody in the Dome department that has worked through navigating this, and Dr. Black and Adrian. I just want to say thank you to all you as well, because as a member of the Latina community myself, I hear all of these concerns all the time, year after year after year after year, and I think this will help, like I said, get us going on the right path. So that's all. Thank you. Thank you,
Any
guys.
other comment? Any other comment? Commissioner Powell?
Thank you. I am looking forward to having closure on this as well, and I'm hoping that my colleagues will agree that this document, the bylaws, should be attached to the appropriate policy that authorizes bilingual counsel to exist, so that anyone who's interested in understanding what that group does can see it and how it's organized, how it organizes itself. I'm particularly interested in preserving these documents because, for example, the Student Leadership Congress bylaws disappeared and cannot be found and have to be recreated essentially from scratch. And had it been attached to a policy that speaks to our Student Leadership Congress, or in particular a student representative serving on this board, we might have that document to this day. So I'd love to see all of our, whether it's PLAC, Student Leadership Council, or the Bilingual Council's bylaws prominently displayed on our policy page.
And to that point also, Commissioner Powell, I would say that not only is it essential that we have proper documentation and know where these things are noted, but that we actually operationalize and execute those things that we place on paper, and we sit at the dais and say, yeah, this is great, this is a great plan. Let's make sure that we're holding it to fidelity and actually doing what we said we're going to do. So I think that's very important, that we could acknowledge that as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Simmons. And so I'd just like to end by saying congratulations that we've got the bylaws in place. It's been a long time coming. I don't even know how many years that this has been considered, but yeah, for years that this has been. And, I just thank you that, we have, people who serve on this board who understands the importance of it and who's community, sensitive to the community, who's part of the community, and that we were able to get this done. So congratulations, and thank you, Dr. Black, and thank you, General Counsel Neal, for all of your work on this. So having said that, we got a motion, we've had discussion, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, so it carries 6-0. Madam Superintendent?
Do we just want to print it out so we can sign it? Or do you have a copy? Let's print it out. Could we print it somewhere up on the third floor
Have a signing ceremony?
and sign it? I mean, might as well, right?
Commissioner Adams and Commissioner Powell. Oh, Commissioner Adams, your vote?
Did I vote already?
Yep, you voted. Mm-hmm.
Might as
There
well
we
sign
go.
it, just
Thank
get it
you.
done.
So should we go on, or are we going to wait for this signing?
Go on and then
Okay.
when she's back.
All right. Yep. So let me just ask, we've got resolutions in section 5, 851 through 859. Would we like to take these all in one group to vote on them? What works best for you, Kalia? Can we do it in a group, or should we do it one by one?
If you could do it one by one, only because also there is the resolution that is being lifted from the table, so I just want to make sure that I don't mess that up.
All right, okay. So can I get a motion for resolution 851?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any comments or questions on Resolution 851? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Can I get a motion for resolution?
The online vote
I'm
is
sorry.
open.
Got to wait for it to vote. All right.
Thank you. Motion passes 6-0.
All right. Is there a motion for resolution 852?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Adams. There's a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any comments or discussion on resolution 852?
Yeah, very quickly, I just want to say congratulations to Jessica and
Yeah.
welcome.
Vice President LeBron?
Yeah, I just want to say congratulations to Jessica on this position, and that's all.
Any other discussion on that resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Is there a motion for resolution 850? Oh,
Motion,
sorry,
oh.
sorry. We got to vote electronically.
Motion passes 6-0.
All right, is there a motion for resolution
Motion.
853?
Second.
Moved by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on resolution 853? Commissioner LeBron?
Yeah, Annalise in the crowd, and we just want to say congratulations on being the executive director, girl. We're going to have lots of pressures on you, but I know you got this stuff. I'm not be talking my junk, but
Okay. Did we get the voting? That's done and everything, down to resolution 854? Okay, is there a motion for resolution 854?
motion.
Second.
Moved by Vice President LeBron, seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on resolution 854? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you, Kalia. Is there a motion for resolution 855?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Vice President LeBron. Any comment or question, any discussion, excuse me, on resolution 855? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you. Is there a motion for resolution 856?
So
Motion.
moved. Second.
Okay, moved by Commissioner Simmons, seconded by Commissioner Malloy. Any discussion on resolution 856? I have one question. I think that's, 856. What is the Director of External School Operations? What is that position?
What, is this retirement?
Good evening, President Elliott, Commissioners. That is a position in accountability that handles state ed reporting and data from state and our external reporting from outside agencies that the district is in partnership with.
Ms. Black is retired.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on resolution 856?
I'm just, I didn't look at this earlier, and I'm just heartbroken that Marlene Blocker's name is on here. I really, it's a big loss. That's
Yeah.
all.
Right.
That's-
Okay. All those in favor of resolution 856?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And of course, Vice President
We
LeBron.
can't chain her to the flagpole at East. We can't.
No, I think because of the incident that may have happened there. I don't know for that for sure, but
I was trying to be funny, but kind of went over like a lead balloon.
So the motion does pass, but I know that the verbal vote took place without without Vice President
Right, but
LeBron.
I'll have to
So
just say
I'm having
she was out of
She
the-
did put in her manual vote, but it has to be both. So I'll have to mark her as absent at the
Okay.
vote. So it's 5-0. Sorry.
all right, thank you. Is there a motion for resolution 857?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any discussion on Resolution 857? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Waiting for the electronic vote.
Should be open now. Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Is there a motion for Resolution 858?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Adams. Any discussion on Resolution 858? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Motion passes 5-0.
Thank you. Is there a motion for Resolution 859?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Malloy, second by Commissioner Adams. Any discussion on Resolution 859? I do have, is this company related to Stephen Covey?
Yes, it's the Stephen Covey organization.
Okay, so what does, so what's the difference between what Stephen Covey does and what this company actually does?
Good evening, President Elliott. So Covey and this organization provides additional supports for schools regarding a program called Leader in Me, which provides training and support to school leaders and their teams around how to actualize their school planning, their school programs, and build skills and capacities across the team so that more impactful things are happening inside the district and inside buildings.
So what kind of evidence, what kind of what's the word I'm looking for?
Outcomes.
Yeah, outcomes or, I can't even
So at
think.
the beginning of the engagement, school teams and the leaders, so your principals and their +1, 2, 3, set goals and then move through both the processes and procedures to then monitor and actualize their goals over time. So this ties directly to the work that Chief Maureen is doing with her elementary receivership schools to build capacity in those schools so that leaders are able to meet their goals more effectively. What we can commit to is as leaders set goals and have them in both their continuation plans and their school planning documents, we can commit to updating on what the goals have been set and how we're moving towards those metrics.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Commissioner Simmons?
Dr. Black, are you able to expound on some other districts or what have you that have implemented this this work that we know is pretty successful? We know Colby is good, but just some examples that you gleaned through research that said this is a good fit for RCSD.
So at this point, I am not best positioned to present the districts. However, you can put it to the question log, and when Chief Maureen, who is driving this effort with her receivership schools, returns, we can add that information.
Thank you.
I've added to the question log, thanks.
All those any other discussion, comments, questions? Okay, all those in favor of Resolution 859?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Commissioner Simmons? Oh, there we go. Motion passes 5-0.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion to lift from the table the resolution for agreement Gallagher Benefit Solutions, Resolution 736 from the June 23rd, 2022 business meeting?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Adams. Is there a
Second.
second? By Commissioner Simmons. Okay.
Can I ask why was it tabled?
There was some,
The superintendent asked to table the resolution after executive session during the June business meeting.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to the superintendent for,
If you would just take the vote on lifting from the table, and then you can do the.
okay, very good, all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It's a
Any
nay for me.
Say that again?
Nay.
Okay, any?
Nay.
Nay, so it doesn't seem, so it doesn't appear that it can be lifted from the table if it's a vote of 3-2?
Are there, are there other persons voting? So I have one nay and one person absent at the vote.
Commissioner Powell voted no.
Voted no. Okay. So,
We want to lift from the table the
she was,
gallery.
yeah,
We have to bring it back, I think.
well, this is just a motion to lift it from the table for discussion. Is the no to bring? Yes, I wouldn't be able to record, Vice President LeBron's vote because she was not in for the entire reading of the motion, but this is the vote for just lifting from the table. So I'm seeing that there are, so I have 2 no's and I have
You should have.
3
oh,
yeses.
Yeah, 2 noes.
So, it's,
So
I'm
what
gonna ask
happens
for
in this case,
some guidance here.
General Counsel?
If it's not lifted from the table, I guess it just remains,
Tabled.
yeah, it remains tabled.
What does that do in terms of, Madam Superintendent, let me ask you to respond on this. What does it do for the firm that we
So
are interested in continuing with, I guess? is better.
And just so there's an understanding, this is just to lift it from
From
the
the
table,
table.
and then the board would take a vote on whether to use on the resolution itself. So this wasn't, the motion to lift from the table was not an affirmative vote for
Right.
the underlying resolution. This is just to raise it from the table for discussion to then take a vote on the resolution itself.
I was aware of that when I voted. I still vote no.
I mean, I'm willing to change my vote to lift it off the table and vote it down officially no, if that's what you're asking to do.
I'm
And I
not asking
apologize,
the
because I did come in and I voted, and you're right, I wasn't here, I just voted no because I saw the name and I was like, I already said no, and I done had lots of arguments and debates about this resolution, but
So the concern is that if we don't, whether you vote it favorably or vote it down, it will continue to leave us without a healthcare broker.
Well, it's my understanding that we continue with the same healthcare provider. right?
That's not accurate.
Okay.
We put that in the Friday
So what work
letter.
has been done then, since then?
We put detailed information in the Friday letter outlining next steps. But if we don't lift it from the table, then it leaves us, continues to leave us without a healthcare broker.
I think with the discussion that's going on is for the resolution itself, but you have to lift it from the table to have the discussion.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
So do you take the revote? Is that what you're,
Well, the vote is not, it's not closed yet because we haven't taken the yea or nay.
oh, so then I might have the year and nay from 4 people.
But you weren't here for the reading of the motion.
I voted no already.
Yeah.
I voted no on something, so.
Yes, your no is recorded. It's essentially absent at the time of the vote, is what it.
But the vote hasn't closed, the vote is still open right now.
Correct.
So let me go back to the ones that said no. Commissioner Malloy, are you still remaining no on lifting it from the table?
Sure, if we need to lift it from the table in order to have the discussion so I can vote no, go for it. That's fine. I changed my vote to yes.
What about you, Commissioner Powell?
I don't see that anything substantively had changed since it was tabled in the first place, so.
If you want to call for the vote.
But we have,
if you-
we have 4 votes now.
Yes, you do have the 4
Yep,
votes
so
now.
we can go on. So it is lifted from the table?
I've closed voting. It is 4-3 to lift from the table.
4-3?
4-2 to lift from the table with Commissioner Patterson absent. My apologies.
And we're still counting Vice President LeBron's vote for lifted?
It's counted as no, because you. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so it's lifted. So the next item is, can I get a motion for Resolution 736?
I'm a motion.
A motion by Vice President LeBron. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner Simmons. Any discussion on Resolution 736? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor?
Nay.
Nay.
All those in favor, not nay. All those in favor.
Sorry.
We gonna say y'all back to the stove. Yeah. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I'll vote aye. All of those opposed?
Nay. Nay.
Okay, so it does not carry. Okay. And the next item on the agenda is new business, and I'm going to turn that over to Vice President LeBron to discuss this exciting opportunity I think that the district has. Vice President LeBron?
Thank you, and I do apologize. I had to step out and talk to my boss for a little bit. So very quickly, we, as the RCSD, the district, as you all know, I took over as the chair for HR, but we've been having conversations around different exciting potential pipeline programs in the future. However, one of the issues that came up is hiring, and right now, when people apply, and I think I've said this multiple times, that it just goes into this black abyss. So we're trying to streamline and fast track, because we have 55 days, I think even less now, before school starts, to fill lots of vacant positions, hundreds actually. So in an effort to fast track that, there's a couple of things that the district's going to start doing, and you'll hear more about that at the next board business meeting. But for right now, we're going to have on-site applications, interviews, and hiring. And we're going to be doing these from now until September when school starts, in an effort to sort of help us get more people hired in a shorter amount of time span, especially for some of our positions that we know we went through last school year with a huge deficit of staffing not being hired. So all of this is obviously contingent on people passing background checks. They will get information about where to go get the background check, and also the drug screening as required by New York State law, and then also board approval resolution. So this came up. Some school districts, and I talked with the state monitor about what other school districts do around this issue. Some school districts, when they have like this peak time, if you will, of when people need to be hired, their boards actually allow the administration to hire people and delay the resolution until a later date. So that's one option that I'm proposing today for the board to consider. We do have to make a decision, unfortunately, today, though, because we're trying to start like by this week, by Friday, or not by next week, the latest. But the other option is that, under special meeting, HR, every 10 days, we meet just to vote on these resolutions. And I know we have special meetings all the time, so that could be an option. But there's still going to be lots of resolutions coming forth, as you all saw. So in order to minimize this and focus on people actually passing through our system so that they can be employed and have start dates and get started on training, my proposal and support would be that we allow a delayed resolution starting next week until the first week of September, for the purposes of fast tracking and hiring people so that they can start. And then in an effort for you all to know who is getting hired and in what positions, submitting those hires through the Friday letter to board members, because it's confidential until it becomes public through a resolution.
Okay. Any questions or comments to the Vice President?
Madam President, I don't understand what a delayed resolution means. Does it essentially mean that they would be legally hired without benefit of a resolution? What are the mechanics of that?
Yeah, so they would be hired, they can start, as long as they pass the background check and the fingerprints. So let me just say, those two pieces by law, we have to follow that, and we have to ensure that that happens. So as long as those two were to pass, then they would be able to start before it came to a board resolution. Right now, the way our system is set up, nobody can start until the board approves it through a resolution, which is fine during a regular school year, but when you're trying to amplify and cut through bureaucracy so that people could get hired on a much faster basis, that does tend to then slow things down, because then staff have to do all the operational internal pieces to get a resolution before the board and then try to align it to a date. And then those individuals can't start until all that alignment happens. And if we're talking about fast-tracking individuals from an application to an interview on site to being offered a position on site, and doing human resources in a different way, if you will, to meet the demands that we have, then on our end as a board, I do think we have to offer some flexibility, but in order to have some kind of oversight still, we should still know who's being brought in. And let me just say, this would not apply to certain positions, so like principals, and so there's no fast tracking some of the leadership positions because there's a different process in place for those things. But this is certainly fast tracking for our folks from the Bente and RAP, in particular, bargaining units and civil service positions as well.
So the only thing that I would to offer is that this board talks a lot about adhering to processes, and so this seems to be an exception. And so, I want us to, make sure that, when we talk about wanting to follow processes, that we are clear about what exceptions that we're making. So any other comments or questions? So what are you asking? What do we need to make it as a vote, or?
I have a question.
Commissioner Patterson?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Patterson.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Are we doing backgrounds on these people, or is the background delayed? They're going to be hired and then we're doing the background, or what's the process?
So let me just repeat that they would interview, they would apply, they would interview, they would get an offer letter contingent upon them passing a background check and fingerprints and a drug test as required by New York State law. There's nothing that we can do to supersede that. That would be illegal of us to do anyway. So yes, it would be contingent on those things. But right now, when someone applies, it could take months, weeks on end to hear back from the district, to then get an interview, to then from that interview potentially be made an offer, and then given the paperwork to go get the background check, and then given the drug testing paperwork. All of that, is fine during the school year, but when we're talking about 55 days and hundreds of vacancies, we're going to have to do something to fast track that internally. Otherwise, we're going to end up opening schools with large deficits of staff and support staff that are critical to operate our schools.
I understand that, but I just want to make sure that if the background isn't done prior to hiring, that it's contingent upon that. So if, for example...
It will be in writing to them, Commissioner Patterson. They are going to get an offer letter on site that says that it is contingent of them passing a background check, a drug screen if it's required by law for that position, and also that the board still has to approve it through a resolution. So even if we're delaying and it comes to us, 4 weeks later, and we realize like, hey, wait a minute, this person had an issue or potentially shouldn't, then that could always be revoked, unfortunately, but that is what we're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So you want to make a motion?
Can I say something?
Yes.
Yeah, I suggest that, that this modified process be put in writing with a start date and an end date. Nothing fancy, just a one-pager so that the board can really understand and see what it is. I truly support you approaching this differently so that you can fill all these positions before the first day of school. But I do think some people understand things verbally, and sometimes people need to see it written down. I think some kind of modification should be written down for people to have.
Meeting next week, Alia, next Tuesday?
The 28th.
We have a meeting on the 28th, that's the, but we also have a meeting on the 25th, which is Monday, which is the FMP work session. So you could essentially do
Yeah.
a vote on that because it is a
Yeah,
public meeting.
I do appreciate that feedback, Dr. Jallo, and I will take that and come back with something in writing. Because I also want to be clear that it would be important to the administration to understand that this is only short-term anyway, and it's only during a certain time frame while we're doing this rapid on-site hiring. So that would be good to have that in writing for everybody. So I'll get some language, and Adrian, I'll talk to you about it. We'll draft something. Thank you.
What is the site we're talking about? We're talking about on-site. Where is HR going to do this recruiting?
So HR, when we have our formal HR meeting, we'll talk about the actual recruiting plan that a comprehensive plan that they've put together anyway. But on-site is going to actually be at the Mercantile. And we'll talk about that more later in greater detail. I'm going to see if Chris can do a presentation at the board business meeting. But it's going to happen at the Mercantile. We're in the process of finalizing that tomorrow.
Can I get a motion for us to go into executive session to discuss matters leading to the appointment, employment, or discipline of persons, and to receive counsel, to receive the advice of counsel?
So moved.
Second.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we will adjourn, and then we will, we're not coming back, we will go into executive session and adjourn from downstairs. So, thank you very much, and have a good evening.